Have you ever really stopped to think about how a business actually grows? I mean, what's the logic behind it all? It's not just random luck. There's a real science to it. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the theory of production and see exactly how companies make those massive decisions about what to make and how to make it. It really all starts with a question that every single manager, every business owner has to ask themselves. When is the right time to hire the next person? Is there some magic number? It might feel like a gut decision, but believe it or not, economics gives us a super clear framework to find the answer. So to wrap our heads around this, let's imagine we're running a little garment factory. Our goal, super simple. We just want to make more clothes. But the real question is, how do we do that without wasting a bunch of time and money? Well, that goal is all about production. That's just the fancy term for turning our inputs, things like fabric, sewing machines, and our workers, into our outputs, which are the finished clothes. So if we want to make more clothes, we've got to get a handle on those inputs. Okay, so in the short run, like right now, some of our inputs are stuck. They're fixed. We can't just snap our fingers and suddenly have a bigger factory or twice as many machines. But other inputs are variable, and the easiest, quickest one to change is almost always labor. We can hire a new person next week. So let's start there. Let's get into the short-run hustle. The plan is simple. We're going to start hiring more people, but we're keeping our factory and our number of machines exactly the same. Let's see what happens to our output. All right, let's look at the actual data. This table shows what happens to our factory's output as we add more and more workers while our number of machines stays locked at 10. You can see right away the output jumps up a lot at the beginning, but then the increases start getting smaller. It's definitely not a straight line up to the top. Something is changing. Now, that total output column is what economists call the total product. It's pretty straightforward. It's just the grand total of garments we're making at each step. But honestly, that total number doesn't really tell us the most important part of the story. To really see what's going on, we need to look at something called the marginal product. This is where it gets interesting. We're not looking at the total anymore. We're asking, what was the extra output we got from hiring just that one more person? What was the real impact of that single new hire? Let's pinpoint a moment here. See this? When we went from 2 workers to 3, our total output leaped up by 30 garments. That 30-unit jump, that is the marginal product of hiring our 3rd worker. That was an amazing hire. But, and you knew there was a but coming, this amazing explosive growth just can't last forever. When you have a fixed-size factory and only so many machines, you're eventually going to hit a wall. And there's a fundamental economic law that tells us exactly why. It's called the law of diminishing returns. And it's simple, really. It just says that as you keep adding more workers to a fixed number of machines, the extra output you get from each new worker, that marginal product, is eventually going to start shrinking. The absolute easiest way to think about this is the classic too many cooks in the kitchen problem, right? The first couple of chefs you add make everything go way faster. But if you add 10 more, pretty soon they're just bumping into each other, waiting for a free burner on the stove, and the whole process actually gets slower. So this whole process actually breaks down into 3 pretty clear stages. In stage 1, you've got increasing returns. Every new person you hire is even more productive than the last one. It's awesome. Then you hit stage 2, diminishing returns. You're still making more stuff overall, but the boost you get from each new person gets a little smaller each time. And finally, you hit stage 3, negative returns. Now you've got way too many people, and adding another worker actually makes you produce less. It's chaos. So what does this all mean for our factory? It means that a smart, rational business always wants to be operating in stage 2. You've gotten past that chaotic startup phase. You're really using your space and machines well, but you haven't hit the point where people are just tripping over each other. You're growing, and you're doing it smart. But this short-run hustle, as great as it is, has a ceiling. You can't just keep hiring forever. To really, truly grow, our factory owner has to start thinking about the long run. And in the long run, nothing is fixed. Which brings us to a much more powerful question. What if you could change the size of the kitchen? What if you could just make it bigger? Well, in the long run, you absolutely can. You can build a new factory, you can buy more machines, you can change the whole game. Now, to plan for that, economists have this cool tool called an isoquant. I know, it's a technical-sounding word, but the idea is simple. Think of it like a production recipe. It just shows you all the different ways, all the combinations of workers and machines you could use to produce the exact same number of clothes.
You could use a ton of workers and a few machines, or a few workers and a ton of machines, and still hit your target.
So that's one half of the puzzle. The other half is the ISO cost line. And just like it sounds, this line is your budget. It shows you all the different combinations of workers and machines you can afford to buy for a certain amount of money. The real magic, the absolute key to long-run planning, is when you put these two ideas together. The whole goal is to perfectly line up what you want to produce with what you can actually afford. We are hunting for that perfect sweet spot. And here it is. The absolute best strategy, the most efficient way to run your business, is to find that single point where your budget line just barely touches your production target. It's not about crossing the line. It's about finding that one perfect point of contact.
That right there, that is the sweet spot. It's the point where you are getting the absolute most output for the minimum possible cost. It doesn't get any more efficient than that.
And behind this visual is a really elegant little rule. You know you're at your most efficient when the extra output you get for every dollar you spend is the same for everything you buy. So the formula just says the bang for your buck you get from labor should be exactly equal to the bang for your buck you get from your machines. Every dollar is working just as hard as every other dollar. And that's really the whole journey, isn't it? It's about understanding the limits of that day-to-day hustle and then using these powerful long-run tools to move beyond it. This is how a business goes from just surviving to building a real strategy for massive, sustainable growth. So the next time you see a now hiring sign in a coffee shop window, or you hear about a local company expanding its factory, you'll know what's happening behind the scenes. It's not a guess, it's a calculated decision. So how does knowing this change the way you see the businesses you walk past every day?